Hey there, you like racing games? Are you a fan of racing games? Well then you've probably dipped your toes in a little franchise called Burnout. Yes indeed, a great series for the most part, so its entries still stand the test of time today. For the most part. But did you know that this influential franchise was inspired by an obscure, somewhat unsettling Japanese arcade game? Yes, I'm just as surprised as you are. However, I saw the name of this game pop up in a comments section, and after doing some research, I knew I had to get my hands on it. And oh boy, it sure is something. Thrill Drive is an arcade racer made in 1998 by Konami. There's not too much info about it online, but apparently back in the day it was decently popular, even getting a semi-English translated version. The game itself is pretty straightforward. Insert 2 coins, press start. Now you gotta be quick with picking your vehicle, because there's only 10 seconds to do so, although it is a rather interesting selection for an arcade racer. And then pick a track that's not in Africa, except you kind of can't because you have to unlock Europe and America. So for now we're just going to pick Japan. Alright, here we go. It chucks us into the game pretty fast. You get a couple of opponents and the maps are all pretty expansive for their time. There's traffic you have to dodge and even sort of a drifting mechanic that I haven't figured out yet, as you can see. The game can be played with a keyboard or controller with emulation, but I went for the full arcade experience and used a wheel. The controls overall are a bit clunky and unpredictable, but decent at best. The cops chase you, although they don't really do much but try and get in front of you, and in a classic turn of 90s arcade racing you have to get to a checkpoint to increase your time and make it to the end of the track, which the tracks are actually pretty well detailed for the time and faithful to the original locations. Pretty cool, right? Well, what if I told you there was something much darker to this game? You see, you have traffic and even people that dodge you, but what happens if you do not? Well, just take a look for yourself. Oh, okay, that was brutal, and the atmosphere has rather shifted quite a lot. There is no upbeat music, the sky is dark and it now feels more like you're wrestling with the car for your life before the timer of it runs out, accompanied by many unconventional sound effects and details, like for instance in the uncensored version your driver flying out with a windshield, sometimes even spraying blood all over the interior if you crash hard enough. The police officer getting out of their car to see the destruction you caused. It is weird, to say the least. Of course, once the timer runs out, the game pretends nothing happened and goes back to cheery music with the sky being back to normal. Like what you just experienced was a mere prank of some sort. And it gets to a screen when you can enter your name. Now, I'm not that great, so for me it said, "You are bad driver," like some sort of PSA about road safety, although if you complete the stages it does say, "You are thrill driver," warning the teenagers against racing. Apparently, from what little sources there are, this game had 2 sequels, but there's even less information about them, let alone a way of playing them. A lot of shady sites claim to have them, however it doesn't look very legit. From what I can gather though, Thrill Drive 2 is largely the same game as Thrill Drive 1, with different tracks and cars, just released 3 years later, which ironically describes the racing game market now pretty spot on.
Turn left, please.
Unlike them, it has a tank though. It does seem to have slightly more detail and a better damage model, but that's really about it. Perhaps dropping the horror aesthetic down a bit. Thrill Drive 3, however, which came out another 4 years later in 2005, has recently gotten some attention from a group of people porting it over to PlayStation 2 in its emulator. It seems to be more polished, and this time in a newer formatted game. The invisible barriers seem to have been removed in favour of a more thrilling, pun intended, experience. The English commentary has some rather questionable lines.
Please watch out ahead of you. Your physical condition has deteriorated. Watch out for trains after a rival car had an accident. Your physical condition has deteriorated. A police
Checkpoint.
Your reaction ability is perfect. Your IQ is increasing.
Overall, though, it seems a lot less horrific than the original installment. And of course, this being Konami, the third entry proved to be the nail in the coffin for the series. From what I can gather online, even going to page 2 of Google, this sure is an interesting rabbit hole to dive down, and it's almost bizarre to think someone working on Burnout played this and was inspired by it. Well, with all that said and done, this will be Eureka Dude, signing off.